Hello there, welcome back to another show. Today I'm doing a John Carpenter double bill. Now normally I would do these individually, these films, but I kind of feel I've covered them a lot in like podcasts and other stuff and mentioned them quite a lot, so it's like, I think I've already done these quite a bit without intentionally covering them directly, so I thought I'd just do a double bill here and have a video about Escape from New York and They Live. Because I've done Escape from LA already, and I think I talked a lot about Escape from New York there, and it's like, what else have I got to say about it? It's a great, terrific film. I managed to see it in the projector to see the full details of it. It looks gorgeous in 4K, been really beautifully remastered. It's a wonderful film, and it is still astonishingly cynical. I mean, even for an 80s movie. This is like a weird movie. It's the 80s where genre is moving away from this kind of film. Carpenter was a 70s director, so this is an early 80s film, but it feels very much like a product of the 70s, how cynical it is and how dark it is. Well, the rest of the industry was moving away towards ripping off Spielberg a lot and trying to do the kind of family home thing. But this was still a time where you could get away with this kind of movie. But it wouldn't happen very much longer. I mean, after Carpenter made The Thing, he was pretty much blackballed from making this kind of movie on a big scale. It was just like, you can't do this kind of cynical movie. So he had to go back to politics. He had to go and do low budget films like They Live. But this was his last one. This and The Thing was his last two big budget films that were really cynical and dark. So Escape from New York obviously has Snake Plissken, has to go into New York, which is now a prison, an open prison, and rescue the president whose plane's crashed there. And he's got, like, a very short amount of time or something in his neck will blow up and kill him. So they have to force him to do it. We've all seen this film, that's the thing. Anyone who's watched this video has seen this film. And it's just when the remaster shows how much detail they put in, how clever some of the kind of model work was. Done by James Cameron, a lot of the paintings. And so you can see the paintings. The bottom half's live action, the top half's painting. And then you take a photograph and you've got an image. And it's a beautifully done film. The model work's terrific. I mean, it's low budget, so there's no way that they could do it the way they were doing some of the Star Wars things where you've got layers and layers of images. You couldn't really do that at the level of an ILM. But for a low budget film, they did quite a lot and they were pretty inventive. They used like what seemed like computer graphics, but were actually painted sets to suggest computer graphics so that it felt like the future, but like a clunky future that was worn down. So even if the effects weren't great, it was such a dark arena that you actually could hide it. And really you had the cynicism to really bring it home. You had the cynicism of Snake Plissken, who was not going to do anything for anybody. And he expressed a distaste for the way the ruling class worked. And that's kind of what the video was about, was the Carpenter political movies and a distaste for like the ruling classes and how they kind of basically bullshit people. And this one, they're bullshitting everybody by sending these guys to prison, or these women to prison, and basically abandon them to kill each other. And it's like, well, we take no responsibility for violent people. We'll just let them kill each other. We don't care. I mean, they basically have a view in this film of these people are animals. Doesn't matter what they did. You commit a crime, you're expelled from America, basically. We're not going to deal with you. You're low class. And there's a suggestion there's been a war, and this will end a war. So there's America's still this imperialist thing that's going to go out. And they're getting rid of all the trash by putting it into New York. But they're still kind of warmongering nation. It's this sense of America that's gotten really rotten to the core. That's very Nixonite America. Very like if Nixon. This is basically if Nixon had not been caught in Watergate, this is what the world would be, type of thing. It's that kind of thing that would lead to Reaganite stuff, but much darker. And it's this wonderful sense of cynicism of the human race and how America's basically become totalitarian. It's become like the way we see China today, really. Is that kind of thing of where the top people rule and everyone else just has to survive. You know, try and be decent, try and survive, but you're probably going to get screwed over in some way. It's that kind of cynicism that Carpenter is now setting in his films. Because his films before that, he got it in Dark Star a little bit, where there are these basically astronauts stuck nowhere, blowing up planets for a mission that may have been forgotten about by the point they're at. Really, there's that sense of it returns here, which you haven't seen for a while with Carpenter. I mean, I saw in Precinct 13 how it was cynical, but I don't optimistic thing because of the connection between the people. I mean, Halloween and The Fog were a lot less political. And this one, the politics come back in it, even though it's an adventure story. But you can't hide the politics. I mean, the Duke of New York has become the Duke because he's the guy who can control these killers. And you see how the killers have evolved. Some of them are become like show people in the centre of the city. Some of them are like scavengers in the sewers. So you don't go out after a certain point in the night, or these scavengers come and get you. You have to hide in the buildings. You don't go through the centre of New York because there's a bunch of people there that you do not want to deal with. So snakes always run into these groups of like savages who have completely devolved into animals, basically. And the Duke kind of rules them all. The Duke kind of lets people have power who he can use. I mean, he's a natural predator. But he's just the best there is in this city. He just looks at what's here in the city and goes, okay, I can use this. But I mean, he's not a nice guy at all. He's not doing it for the people, he's doing it for himself. And he wants out of New York because New York's not a good place to be. Because they have to have Howard Dean Stanton's character to create electricity to restart the generators and things. But it's very limited. And they have to rely on people coming into New York who have skills and then using those skills to help them. I mean, they'd love to have Snake Plissken on their side, but because he's working for the government, they can't have him and have to try and kill him. And that's the big cynical thing about these films is Plissken sort of should be on the side of the criminals, but because he's been basically blackmailed, he's not. But he's not. It's not like he doesn't have any sympathy for the criminals, but he does. He hates the people who are forcing him to do stuff a lot more. And that cynicism really works in this film. This sense of the world's turned into a hellhole by self-interest. They Live as Carpenter's return to politics after The Thing, basically. Or even The Thing doesn't have that many politics overtly. It's just the political sense of people trying to survive. And this came after, like, he'd done Starman and Christine, which hadn't done great, but they were respectable, like, comebacks from the disaster of The Thing. And he did a Big Trouble in Little China, which had bombed, even though it's now a massive cult film. They didn't understand that film at all. And so that kind of ended his big run with Kurt Russell. And then he went back to independent films. So he made Prince of Darkness, which was a nice little film, but it's flawed. And then he made They Live. And this was kind of the last great grasp of Carpenter. I mean, he made, afterwards, he made The Myth of Madness, which is a very good film. And Escape from L.A. has some good points in it. Like, it's got problems because the budget was cut, but it has some good political points. And I kind of like Vampires, but this was kind of the big hooray, final hooray, because this was like pure Carpenter. You know, he's taking a genre story and just infusing it with politics and just having this idea of this guy who's homeless, he's been moved from place to place, trying to find work. Now he's in LA. He finds out by working this site, and but he can't afford a place to stay. He's staying with the homeless people in this camp, and he finds out there's a conspiracy. The rich are actually aliens, and the subliminal messages like consume, obey, which you can see behind me. And this sense of the world has become this kind of grinding post for the rich. You don't really exist if the poor. The police will come and get you, and knock you out your homes, and arrest you, and they're just to pay the rich. The poor have to be defeated. The rich are mindless consumers. Some of them are aliens, some of them are human beings, but they're all mindless consumers of goods. Doesn't mean no matter what. There's no sense of community. It's based on attacking Thatcherism and Reaganism in that sense. There's no community. There's no joint purpose for people. No one should be in a tribe of other like-minded people. You should just work for yourself. And if other people fall through the cracks and die, so what? So this is just saying, oh yeah, these are all aliens, because only an alien could be so cruel, even though human beings are. And this film kind of makes the point. So human beings sell out all the time. It's like, it takes the alien idea, but really it's an attack on us as human beings being so greedy and so self-serving, so nasty to other human beings that you can't even allow them the dignity of homes and at least basic living. Like basically a lot of people just have to survive on the streets. They just do not have the support. And that's what's the kind of thing that Carpenter's against in this film. And it shows the kind of drive towards just consumerism is just this empty joke of a situation. And you've got your hero as Rowdy Roddy Piper, the wrestler. It's a very good performance. This is probably the best film and best performance by a wrestler. And just this idea of this guy in the streets trying to, survive, and he's always getting hunted by the police and everyone else because they know he knows, and he's been spotted, so he has to be hunted down. And he finds as he goes that he can't even trust other human beings because the human beings are so selfish and so they think, oh, if we lost anyway, we might as well make a profit from it. And it's like, it's just so cynical, and that's Carpenter at its peak cynicism, because he's so good at this kind of like anti-greed screed that Paul Verhoeven's also great at, this sense of how human beings can truly treat each other in just a horrible way. They have no sense of dignity, no sense of tribalism. It's just, Verhoeven's much nastier about it, because Verhoeven really shows you good characters. Carpenter showed you good characters have been stamped down. He's a bit more humane in that way. But this is a wonderful film. It's really enjoyable. It's one of those things, probably a lot of political films is they're not enjoyable. Like the rhetoric overtakes it and the nuance is gone. This film, because it's a genre film, they can have moments to break from the doom. Like there's a scene where they have to get Keith David to see the aliens through the glasses. He refuses to actually put the glasses on to have this massive fight, which is really silly, intentionally silly. It breaks the tension for a while, then we get back to the film. It's an enjoyable, silly bit, and that's what sci-fi can do, because we've just been silly, it doesn't matter, and then you can see the ideas in there. Like, They Live was basically released and viewed of as an obvious film of Reaganism. Let's forget about it, failed. It didn't do that well. It did okay for its budget, but it didn't. Ironically, it made its money back because it was a low-budget film quite easily, but because it didn't make a massive profit, because it was so satirical, it was viewed as a failure, even though it wasn't, because it was a failure towards the greedy over expectations of studios, because they were spending so much money on our films that weren't making money back because they were just expansive and trying to just show ego. And this is just what the film's about. It's just this ego of human beings and ego of capitalism, where you're doing all this stuff and it's all empty. Like, all the magazines covers magazines are empty. The television is just telling you subliminally to just to be a sheep. Just don't think at all. Do not question at all. That's what this film's all about. And you find out with Escape from New York, which is all the cynicism of the leadership of how they treat you as cattle. And this one is that they're fooling you to be cattle. And it's like this sense of the ruling class do not like the working classes. They are scared of them. And that's the big thing if you see through societies. People are scared of them. Like, if you look at communism, it's basically conning the working classes to think they've got power even though they don't, because it's still authoritarianism. And capitalism is like make people think that they can be rich when they can't, because the system's been, rigged, so you can't. But it's also that both my dream, like, the common people can have power, but they don't. Neither actually allows that. And it's just this sense of always this kind of authoritarianism, what it does to people, that kind of floats through Carpenter's films, even though he takes the idea of a genre conceit and tries like a big character like Snake Plissken, or Nada from this film, who's a was played by a wrestler, so he's a bigger like character. But there's still humanity to both those characters, even though they are kind of broad compared to some other things. But it's just this sense of this kind of fantasy world where you can put all these political ideas and just show the kind of ruinage. I mean, there's so much stuff in Escape from New York, just the ruin of New York and the ruin of all these people trying to survive in there and how they have become animals. And in They Live, it's about how people have just become these zombies who just are apathetic. They don't know how to fight back. And it's just this sense of the political sense of how people are always getting pushed down by no matter what kind of authority. It's always going to be an authority saying, you're not worth much, just leave us alone. Let us control everything. You just shut up. So these are two political John Carpenter films. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it didn't drag on for too long. But again, I've covered both these films before in different ways, so I didn't want to spend too much time going on and repeat myself. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back soon with the final video of the week. Bye for now.